I'm going to start, guys, is no matter what divide you are politically, governments past and present have talked a big game when it comes to infrastructure. Delivering has been another story. Right now, our infrastructure system is not performing as well as it needs to be. We rank in the bottom 10% of high-income countries for the quality and efficiency of our infrastructure investments. Put simply, we get less and poorer quality infrastructure for our spending. Infrastructure Minister Chris Bishop confirmed the Coalition's approach in a speech to Infrastructure New Zealand's conference named Building Nations, and promised a national infrastructure agency that's going to start from the 1st of December, with the government repurposing and powering up the current Crown infrastructure partners. The Undersecretary to the Minister for Infrastructure and RM Reform is Simon Cord, who's actually at the Building Nations conference right now, but he snuck out to join me. Simon, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Leah, and good afternoon to the platform audience.
Thank you very much. I know you're in this conference today, so you've found a nice little corner to talk to me, so I appreciate that. Can we start, Simon? Minister Bishop has announced a National Infrastructure Agency, NIA, that would commence work in December. It's part of a suite of reforms that he says will provide a 30-year roadmap. Who will make up this agency?
Well, the government is going to have to compete with the private sector, domestically and internationally, to get really high calibre infrastructure people into this agency. We do have an agency at the moment called Crown Infrastructure Partners. They delivered the ultra-fast broadband project, but we need people, and unfortunately we're losing Sean Sweeney from the City Rail Link project to Ireland, but we need people like Sean to come and work in government so that we have a really powerful client-side public sector organisation that can actually participate with the private sector in delivering big projects like the Northland Roads of National Significance, new corrections facilities, new defence facilities, all of which are going to require the government to be a much smarter, more competent and capable client.
So, okay, so they have to, will part of their role, you've been mentioning the private sector, will part of their role be soliciting the private sector for investment proposals?
Well, the purpose of the National Infrastructure Agency is essentially to act as a shopfront so that agencies like transport, like corrections, like defence, for example, health and education, when they need to engage with the private sector because they need additional finance or they want to try to procure, say, new schools or hospitals or roads using private finance and private sector capability, then the National Infrastructure Agency will be a shopfront where they can say, hey, we've got a project, we're inviting you to come and talk to us about it, but also somewhere where we have really smart engineering and other organisations in New Zealand and around the world who want to offer New Zealand good ideas that currently there's no front door they can go and knock on. And I'll give you an example. I was in Texas in 2022 and I met with a consortium there called Sintra that runs Texas toll roads. And they presented to me, I thought I was going to hear a presentation about Texas toll roads. After we got through that quite quickly, they presented to me a proposal for upgrading Auckland's Northern Busway and Northern Motorway. Now, they said they'd presented that to the previous government and they'd heard nothing but crickets. So we want the National Infrastructure Agency to be a place where unsolicited proposals or market-led proposals can also be presented, that there's actually a front door to knock on for people who want to build infrastructure in New Zealand, want to use private finance to do it, and who can present us with ideas that we can say that actually is value for money and it brings forward infrastructure delivery so we can get the benefits of it earlier than if we had waited until the Crown had sorted itself out.
All right, can we go a little bit deeper into the PPP, the public-private partnerships? And you've said the government has to make it clear about what it is and is not buying with PPS. How do you mitigate the risks associated with any public-private partnership?
Well, there's a whole lot of risks in any construction project. If you're the client, whether you're a home builder or you're doing a property development, or whether you're the government client and say you're buying a new prison or you're buying a new road, you say, well, which risks am I, the client, best placed to manage? Should I go and get the resource consents before I put the project out to tender? Or am I going to tender a design and then expect the builder to go and get consents from your local council? who might say, oh, geez, no, you shouldn't build it there. We want you to build it somewhere else, or we want you to make the drains twice as big as you tendered. That just introduces so much uncertainty, very difficult for public-private partnerships or any contractor to price in that kind of risk. So one of the things we're investigating with refreshing and reforming the current public-private partnership model is who's best placed to manage what risks. And in some cases, it may well be that the government, public sector agencies are best placed to go and get the consents before they put the project out. Because what happened at Transmission Gully, for example, was that they went and got a PPP. Yeah, they went and got a PPP there. And it turned out that the Wellington Regional Council wanted much tougher, in some cases really kind of wacky consent conditions that any road builder or any engineer would have said that's probably not necessary, and by the way, very, very expensive to meet expectations on, and we never priced for it. So those are the kind of things we want to avoid happening in the future.
Okay.
We're working on a program which will take us through to, say, November, when we'll be able to announce more about the future PPP model and give some good guidance to people who want to engage with government, but also let the government agencies know what they need to do to be ready to engage with the private sector.
Because, Simon, you brought up Transmission Gully because for our listeners, the project was initially estimated to cost $850 million. That was in 2012. And then the final bill, I think, is yet to land, but it's somewhere around, I think, $1.25 billion. And it was, and that had a scathing review of how that tendered out and the private contract. In a review, they said it was an unrealistically low price by essentially double counting cost savings the private sector could bring to the project. You are confident we wouldn't see another Transmission Gully?
Well, I think the review found exactly what the problem was. When the government went out to market, they said, look, if it was our own roading engineers and the government department who built it, we could build it for $800 million, so that's all we're prepared to pay. Now, if you put that out to the private sector, they might say, hey, there's a whole lot of stuff you've left out. And we need to make sure that when we sign the contract, that we get everything in there that your own government department has left out. And sometimes government departments leave costs out because they want it to be easier for their minister to get a lower price signed off by Cabinet.